Can you guys see and hear me? Perfect. And is the audio okay? Fantastic. I've been having some audio and video issues, which considering that Mercury retrograde is over, shouldn't be the case. I actually my microphone just basically isn't working, so unfortunately we're gonna have to rely on the laptop audio quality for now. But if you let me know if you can't hear me or you can't see me, just maybe like I think people tend to do like the red like stop emojis so I can catch them. Thank you guys for joining, and like hi to all of the sort of regular Insight Timer teachers and attendees. It's great to see everyone. I've had, so just a bit of context, I've had the most manic, hectic day, and I actually had intended to schedule this live for tomorrow, for this time tomorrow. And I realised today when I invited someone to it that it was happening tonight. So I cancelled the plans I had tonight to be here and make sure that I could actually make it happen and follow through, because obviously you have to schedule them 48 hours in advance. So if I cancelled it today, I wouldn't have been able to do it until probably, next week at some point now or the week after. So I wanted to kind of prioritize being here with you guys today. And thank you for obviously showing up and giving me your time and energy and attention. So obviously today's kind of focus and topic, like the theme throughout kind of most of my lives, is going to be how we build authentic, meaningful connection and how we kind of create a sense of community around us. And obviously we touched upon it kind of in the first session, but there's a lot of evidence around the difference that community and connection can make to kind of longevity, health, how connected we feel, obviously alleviating loneliness and isolation. And I think, one of the key things, like later in life especially, is there's many stories around how, people literally die of a broken heart, where, if there's a couple and one of the couple passes away when they're elderly, if there isn't a community or kind of a wider network around the partner that's left alive, the other partner can also die very soon after, even without having any kind of obvious health issues or any kind of clear, and contraindications before that point. So that's just, but there's like a lot of evidence around, if they've got other people around them or neighbors and friends and a social life, then that kind of doesn't happen. So, it just goes to show like the power of community and connection and the impact that it can make. And one of the things that I wanted to speak about today was how, and we touched upon this, I think, last time as well, around values and, how important values are in terms of how we choose to live our life, like who we spend time with, what we spend our free time doing. And I guess ultimately who we enter into kind of relationships with, who we allow into our space, who we give kind of access to our energy and our time. And ultimately, the people we spend time with do actually influence us and affect how we show up in the world and, who we are. So that kind of leads me on to looking at values from the perspective of how we can use them as a compass to help us like figure out if we're trying to build more community and more connection in our lives, or if we're looking for kind of new communities to join, hi Anthony, or be part of. Then where, like, how can we use our values to point us in the direction of, or as a compass to like guide us towards things that will make us feel more like us. And I think if you're looking for kind of new activities or things to be part of, I think values is a great place to start, because if you know what you care about and what really matters to you, you can obviously find things that fit with that are more in line with kind of who you want to be, what you care about, and ultimately what matters to you. And obviously I think it's important as well to like find things that you just enjoy doing and that bring you joy. But in terms of kind of community, you're likely, so a couple of reasons around kind of going from a values centric perspective is you're likely to find people that have a similar mindset or outlook or energy to you. And I think it's so important. A friend of mine recently told me she went to She goes to kind of retreats and festivals and events and things all the time. And she went to one that was kind of particularly around sort of holistic wellness and things that she's interested in. And one of the key things for her, and that I really noticed when she told me about it afterwards, she was basically saying that she felt so seen and understood by the people that were there because they had similar outlooks, similar kind of values, mindset. They were interested in the same things. And it basically made her feel like, certain sort of more understood and accepted. And she felt a part of something where she didn't have to kind of explain herself or, sort of give context on what she's interested in or why. And I think that is something that ultimately, like, all of us want. We want connection, but we also want to feel understood. We want to feel seen. We want, there's nothing worse than kind of feeling like you have to explain yourself, or like something that matters to you is kind of like minimized or dismissed or misunderstood by other people. So it made me kind of think that actually, if we can spend time in circles and spaces and communities that align with what we care about and what makes us feel like us, we can sort of be more authentic versions of ourselves. Hi. I will take a pause to like catch up on the comments and say hi to everyone as well. But yeah, it kind of helps us to be more authentic and live more authentically and just kind of be ourselves. Let me just catch up on the comments. For some reason, it only lets me scroll up to a certain point, so I should be more vigilant about keeping an eye on things. Hi Monica, lovely to see you. Hi Jane. Hi Laurie. And guys, thank you for the patience with the video issues. I will sort out the mic for next week. It's having a day. Richie, Anthony, great to see you guys, and thank you for the supposed like tech support, giving me feedback that you could or couldn't see me. I know we had an issue with the mic last week, so if that drops off again, please let me know. So for anybody that's just joining, I've had an incredibly hectic day, and I was meant to do this live tomorrow, and then realised that I'd accidentally scheduled it for today. And a lot of teachers on here have told me that they've done the same thing before, but I didn't want to cancel. And so it's not quite as like planned or polished as I'd hoped. But it's I really value the time with all of you, and let's try and make it the best that we can. So the first little kind of exercise I have for everyone is if you can please put in the chat just any like values that you have or things that really matter to you, just as a starting point. So you can just put in a few values, or you can put in one. Just values that you would like to kind of grow or expand on, or that you feel you need more of in your life. So let's say your value is kind of being active, for example. So if you guys can put values that you have into the chat, and then what we're going to do ultimately, we're going to have a little kind of brainstorm and discussion around how these values can feed into different types of communities, different types of activities and groups, and sort of see if we can give each other a bit of like inspiration on how and where you can find sort of communities or create them that align with these values. I'm just going to grab, I saved a little reading for you guys from earlier in the week, so I'm just going to grab that while you do that. Right, so we have connection, honesty, love, authenticity. And I think all of those sort of make sense because obviously you wouldn't be here otherwise, right? You wouldn't be choosing to spend your Wednesday evening or afternoon, depending where in the world you are, with me if these things weren't important to you. And then we've also got family, children, that's a lovely one, Samantha. Chantel, trust, loyalty, integrity, compassion, individuality, and honesty. And so the next question I kind of have for you is, out of those values that you have, how many of you feel like you are involved in or surrounded by communities or people that kind of help you to feed into that or that support that? Or is that something you'd like to grow? And just while you kind of have a think about that, I've got a little kind of reading that I'd saved that I came across earlier in the week, and I thought that you guys would appreciate it. So basically this is about kind of attachment, and it's from the book Attached, which if any of you have read it, is brilliant, and I really recommend it if you haven't. But one of the things that really stood out to me is, so I'm someone who has anxious attachment. I've mentioned this before, and for me, I've always kind of been of the understanding that that's something that I need to kind of work on and heal, and I need to move towards secure attachment, which is all true, and I do. But what I didn't understand is that there's evolutionary reasons for, depending on what your attachment style is. If your attachment style is then activated and you act out in ways, whether it's you've got an avoidant attachment style or a anxious attachment style, if that system is activated, it's actually for an evolutionary biological reason. So there's a lot of evidence around, they did some tests where basically if a woman was given or put under stress or given like stressful news, they did it with a series of women, and they basically tested if she's holding a stranger's hand, if she's holding a partner's hand, and then also within that, if she's holding a partner's hand, if depending on the level of kind of closeness with the partner. And the kind of evidence that they found was that basically if she's holding a stranger's hand, it doesn't make that much difference to how stressed she is. She'll still be like stressed from the news. If she's holding a partner's hand, the stress is like quite significantly less, and it's even less the impact of the stress if she's holding the hand of a partner and they like claim that they have closeness and a good, strong, happy relationship. So it just goes to show that, having that like physical contact with someone, or things that you kind of might look at, and now people kind of say, oh, we should like self-soothe and we should be able to meet our own needs and things like that. But actually, in terms of like biological evolutionary evidence, you actually do, there is a need and a reason for why we kind of co-regulate based on other people. We do it when we're babies and children. So, that's why there's all this evidence around newborn babies, or if babies are like struggling, they put them in an incubator with another baby, or, having the skin to skin contact, because it does make a difference. It helps to regulate you, and that is true in adults. So this reading basically is around that concept. And where I'm going with this is that, as much as we might think, or, we've had periods of time in the world where people have been independent or, focused on like themselves. And we have had a slightly kind of individualistic sort of focus in previous years, where it's all this thing about personal development and, working on yourself and things being our responsibility. But actually, the reality is that you can't really do much without other people, and we don't live in a silo. We live in a world. There's people around us. We live in relationships, we live in families, and even people who are kind of isolated or live alone, biologically, in terms of, in an evolutionary sense, like we are designed to be social, connected human beings. So, and all the evidence points to this, and this is what I found interesting about kind of some of the stuff in this book called Attached. So this is around evolutionary ties. So attachment theory is based on the assertion that the need to be in a close relationship is embedded in our genes. It was John Bowlby's stroke of genius that brought him to the realization that we've been programmed by evolution to single out a few specific individuals in our lives and make them precious to us. We've been bred to be dependent on a significant other. The need starts in the womb and ends when we die. Bowlby proposed that throughout evolution, genetic selection favoured people who became attached because it provided a survival advantage. In prehistoric times, people who relied only on themselves and had no one to protect them were more likely to end up as prey. So that's a really interesting thing, because again, we literally used to live in communities. People relied on each other. And I think now, obviously, people still do kind of, not necessarily live in isolation, but more and more people live alone. And it is actually, in the history of the world, that would never have been the case. So more often than not, those who were with somebody who deeply cared about them survived to pass on to their offspring the preference to form intimate bonds. In fact, the need to be near someone special is so important that the brain has a biological mechanism specifically responsible for creating and regulating our connection with our attachment figures, parents, children, and romantic partners. This mechanism, called the attachment system, consists of emotions and behaviours that ensure that we remain safe and protected by staying close to our loved ones. The mechanism explains why a child parted from their mother becomes frantic, searches wildly, or cries uncontrollably until they re-establish contact with her. These reactions are coined protest behaviour, and we all still exhibit them as grown-ups. In prehistoric times, being close to a partner was a matter of life and death, and our attachment system developed to treat such proximity as an absolute necessity. Imagine hearing news of and this bit's not kind of as relevant, but imagine hearing news of a plane crash in the Atlantic on the evening your partner's flying from New York to London. That sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach and the accompanying hysteria you'd feel would be your attachment system at work. Your frantic calls to the airport would be your protest behaviours. And this is the kind of protest behaviour thing is a different topic. It's around sort of, just to give context for anyone who's interested, and you can kind of look this up and find out more about it. But protest behaviour is where someone who has anxious attachment basically will kind of act out or protest through their behaviour if they're not getting their needs met or if they don't feel safe. So, as a simple example, I'm trying to think of a kind of example I'm comfortable sharing from my own life. But as an example, like if, let's say, I don't hear from a partner, if I then said, and then they messaged me or called me, if I was to then be like, oh well, I'm not going to reply to them, or I'm not going to speak to them now because they didn't reply to me, that's protest behavior kind of at a simple level, but it can be much kind of stronger and bigger than that as well. So right, let me just catch up on the messages we had, and then we'll go back to the sort of themes around how we can use our values to find communities to be part of. So trust in other people is not always easy for me. Is it Inge? Am I pronouncing that correctly? Please tell me. So funny. Me, my husband, and oldest talked about that skin to skin yesterday and how babies need it to survive, but teens/adults do too. Yeah, and I think that's essentially the point. The biggest kind of takeaway I had from this book, Attached, is that we basically feel like thank you so much for the donation, Samantha. So there's two Samanthas who are very close to me in my life, and I'm not sure if it's one of those or which one it is, but please drop me a message to let me know if it is the Sam or Samantha that I'm thinking of. I think I know who it is, based on the amount and it being angel numbers. But yeah, just on that note, obviously Insight Time is a free platform, and all of teachers like myself share our kind of time and our energy sort of voluntarily here. So if you're in a position to donate and support our work, please do. I'd really appreciate it. I've just gone through like the redundancy process at work, so this is kind of my main source of income at the moment. And obviously, one thing that Catherine Ramati, who is a wonderful teacher on here and a wonderful person generally, and many of the people in this community I know from her sessions, she always says that when you sort of like give, whether it's energy or time, or you make a donation, you're creating a vacuum wherein the same will come back to you. So yeah, let me just go back to the messages. You were saying that you would die if you didn't get hugged anymore. Yeah, and we would, and this is the thing. So we assume that this skin to skin stuff is mainly talked about with babies. It's not really spoken about with adults. And that's the thing. Over COVID, people realized that actually having that in-person interaction, having that actual human contact, makes a huge difference. And it is so important to kind of like health, well-being, everything else. Monica, you live alone and you hug yourself. Like, I think that's a great thing to do. But also, Monica, I know you're a kind of very like sort of social being, and like Monica, for anybody that doesn't know her, has like a wonderful energy. I've seen her on kind of many lives over the years, and yeah, you shouldn't settle. You deserve the best. And you've got loads of friends and family. I know you also kind of talk to and spend time with your neighbors and things as well, just like me. And yeah, so two things that have come up there, the gym and yoga classes. So I think one of the things is like how we can use our values to find kind of communities and spaces that help us to not only kind of live more in line with our values, which ultimately will make us like happier and more authentic, but also like how we can use it to be the best versions of ourselves. So, if, for example, health and wellness is important to you, or, if you know that you probably should kind of look after your health a bit more, or, work on like stretching or mobility or whatever else, finding communities that can help you to do that and support you. So, for example, classes or the gym can be a lot more powerful than like working out at home. And I found that personally, if I say, I'm going to do yoga at home, sometimes I might not do it. If I say, well, I'm going to walk 10 minutes to the gym and, do whatever I can there. And if not, I'll come home. But obviously, once I'm there, I'm realistically going to do something. And not only that, but the difference it makes to my day. If I've kind of been alone from like waking up, I will literally walk to the gym, and I will see like the girls on reception. I might see other people in the neighborhood that I know on the way, and just exchanging a smile or a little like small conversation is such a wonderful thing. And it makes such a big difference, when you just have that little exchange with like someone in the coffee shop. I mean, if all of you can sort of share a little story or a little moment, it just can be something simple of a time when a small, what could be considered a meaningless interaction, like something small where you just like say hi to someone, or, have a chat with someone in a coffee shop who you don't know, has actually made it impact or changed your mood or improved your day. If you guys can just reflect on that, you don't necessarily have to put it in the chat, but if you want to put it in the chat, inspire others and share it, like please do. And I've got like loads of stories like that. So yeah, Monica, you were saying, and Inge, you were saying maybe a big hug is too much for your gym friends. Maybe at this point, but you never know, because a pat on the shoulder or so. But also, I think like I don't know, it might be different in kind of certain parts of the world, but for me, like I'm a hugger. And I like when I go to meetings for work, if I've spoken to the person before and there's like a kind of familiarity, even if it's the first time I'm meeting them in person, I will hug them. And I feel like most people are quite responsive. It just depends. Like when you see someone, if you've seen them like more than once, and you feel comfortable, and there's the energy that might be like comfortable for them as well, then like give it a try. If you feel comfortable enough, then why not? Because it's people quite often mirror our energy. So as an example, if you like get in a lift with your neighbors or strangers, and I mentioned this on one of my recorded tracks, people quite often wouldn't say hi, but if you say hi first, or you smile at them, or you say like have a good evening when you get out the lift, they'll say it back. So people quite often you can set the tone, and you can like lead by example. Oh, Mark, cool, you're in Richmond. So for anyone that is from London, like I live in East London, and there's a really lovely sense of community here. And like maybe at some point we can do like a London meetup, if anyone would be keen for that. So Monica, you're very grateful for your gym community. Yeah, like me too. I think it's such a nice thing. I've got the community because I go to the pool, and there's basically and there's a gym there as well, but it's the pool's mainly where people socialize, because people will like chat when they're kind of in the jacuzzi or in the steam room or whatever. And it is so nice. And I think, I'll be honest, the pool and the gym I go to is so run down and so shabby, and they're refurbishing it, and it really, really needs it. But the reason that I keep going is, first of all, it's 10 minutes walk from where I live. And secondly, it's the people. It's literally the community. It's like the nice girls on reception, and the lovely kind of other members, some of whom I'm friends with, and I think some of them might be here now as well. But I've literally met like some of my closest friends that way. So yeah, so Monica, you're saying just hi to Jessica. Saying hi to Jessica. It's been a long day, guys, so bear with me. And yeah, just saying hello or smiling at the person who passes by can do so much. It's so true. And yeah, group classes, Monica just suggested. I would definitely like recommend classes. And what I would say as well, if you're looking to kind of build community and you're doing any sort of classes or activities, go early, and like try and chat to people before or after. Don't just kind of if you want to build connections and community, like don't just like go on time and like leave early afterwards, because I find that's where you end up actually talking to people, because while you're doing the class you might not actually chat, but when you're waiting for the class to start, or sort of like grabbing some water afterwards or whatever, that's when you sort of will speak more. So maybe when you're booking like a class or an activity, like carve out and schedule the time before and after if you can. So Laurie, you're a huge hugger too. You don't think twice about it. But yeah, occasionally people pull back and it doesn't stop you. Well, I'm glad that you're kind of authentically being yourself, and not letting someone else stop you. Yeah, I think like, as a kind of empath and as someone with anxious attachment, I think I've got a good read of like energy and vibe, and also where I feel comfortable. So I think I generally don't really hug people. Like, I tend to like hug people who are also fine and receptive to it. Um, I've never had anyone like pull back, luckily. Um, and yeah, Anthony, you've said we've got the great ability to connect us in small and meaningful ways. Absolutely. So somebody who is put down as guest 2 minutes ago just said, "Hi, Priyanka. If you could let me know who that is in the chat, I would really appreciate that, because I assume it's someone that I know." Um, oh, Jessica lives in Austin too. Cool. Yeah, that would be great. If you guys do that, please like let us know and keep us posted. And yeah, Mark, you were saying if COVID changed people's perceptions of hugs. I think it did. I feel like weirdly, I think I was more like conscious about like shaking hands after COVID, because I think that was like the bigger thing. And that was the kind of more immediate thing straight after, because obviously hugging was still like hands, it was still a bit more distant. So I think, yeah, absolutely. And also, the other thing about COVID is we spent more time at home and like isolated. So you kind of lose that practice of necessarily being around people, being in physical contact with people. um, I think, for a while afterwards, I'd still even feel weird if I went to and I still kind of do it now. Like, I didn't always used to when I got in from the shops or whatever, anti-bac or wash my hands, but I do now, like, religiously, and that is as a result of COVID. Just a little reminder for anybody that needs it: grab some water or some tea. Make sure you're kind of staying hydrated. It's super important, and I find when I'm really busy, I don't always hydrate sufficiently. So, has anybody got any examples of communities that you're part of other than the gym, or communities that you'd like to be part of, or that you'd kind of just, if we're having a little brainstorm here, I've got some ideas and suggestions kind of in my mind, but which I will share. But has any of you got kind of, if any of you have um, any like inspiration, communities you've been part of, communities you'd like to try out or be part of, or any thoughts on communities that you kind of, what you think like communities around you are, what your options are for, like, if somebody wanted to join a community, what would you suggest to them? And I'm just catching up on messages while we do that. So, Laurie, as someone who's been stuck inside since COVID started due to immune issues, I appreciate this conversation about building community, but I can't really imagine going to a pool or gym now. Still, I love getting points about building community however we can. So, Laurie, just to clarify, are you still having to kind of stay inside and sort of keep an eye on your kind of immunity, for context, or is it more that you have the kind of that you've had to do that, and so you're less comfortable with doing that now? And Monica says she's met several teachers from Insight Timer. Yeah, I was on that live with Catherine Ramati, and Catherine was like, "Oh, I've got Monica here," and I was like, "Wait, is that Monica from Insight Timer?" And it was. Monica, if you ever come to London, or rather when you come to London, I hope that you can be on a live with me as well. So Tanya, Audubon Society. I don't know what that is, but I would love to find out more. Does anybody else? Has anyone else heard of that? Or Tanya, can you share more on that? Or nature groups. Nature groups are such a great idea. So there's a lot of like walking groups, and I think that's come up before. And yeah, you've met other teachers as well. Brilliant. Well, I would love to meet you, Monica. We've known each other for like a long time, so yeah. Okay, so book club. So for anyone that's just joined, because I've just noticed a few more people jump on, and we're just talking about kind of everyone sort of having a little share of ideas around communities that you can join or things that you can be part of. And I think an important distinction I'll make is how you translate, and also kind of, what we'll talk about is how you can translate just an activity or a thing that you do and make that into a community. And this was actually a conversation that I was having today, because I'm basically involved in this show. It's got a very interesting name. So feel free to look it up, but it's called You Me Bum Bum Train. And it's kind of a cult, like, immersive theatre show that's happened in London before. They've done quite a few shows. This is the first one that I'm involved with, but it's really exciting. And I'm kind of going to be quite involved with this show, so that'll take up a lot of my free time. But we were literally having conversations today around how you build community, because they need a really high number of volunteers. It's all kind of run by volunteers, and it's all about kind of community and creativity, and it's a really interesting project. So I do recommend kind of looking that up, and anyone who is based in London or in the UK that might be interested in kind of like volunteering or finding out more, like, definitely sort of either drop me a message on here or kind of look it up. But it's a really, really cool, really like magical, amazing thing. But we were basically speaking about how we grow the community and how we make it feel like more of a community. And I think some of the sort of considerations we had is that, ultimately you want people to feel safe, you want people to feel sort of comfortable, included, you want it to feel like a family, you want people to be able to kind of have a nice time and want to come back. I think there's many different forms of community and many different ways that like shows up, but I think ultimately what we all want, and what I'm trying to create for myself and share tips around, is communities, or building communities, where we feel safe, we feel heard and seen, we feel accepted, we feel part of something, we feel like it's bringing out the best in us and giving us the opportunity to kind of grow. And I'm also going to pause and catch up on the comments. So, oh, cool. Oh, Monica, great. Yeah, let me know. We'll chat about your London visit. Hopefully, if you are going to be around, maybe you can like be involved in the show with me, because they literally have sometimes volunteers who just like come and volunteer for like one night of the show, and it's a really, really cool thing. Yeah. So obviously, the Audubon Society's bird watching. That's so cool. Okay, and Tanya, is that something that you're interested in, or just like something you'd like to do, or just a suggestion? I think that's exactly it. I think it's like really important to find interests and groups that you like. I think the more niche like your interests are, it's kind of interesting, because you'll meet people who maybe you wouldn't know otherwise. So I think part of the like reliance, or what stops people sometimes from creating communities, is like and this kind of, the thing about the reason I mentioned that passage from Attached and read it was because ultimately what that talks about is where we have a few key figures that we've decided are going to be our kind of, go to like people that we prioritize in life and spend time with and rely on. But the problem with that is that it can put a lot of pressure on just a few people. And, let's say when friendships dissolve or someone moves or something changes, we can be left like feeling a little bit like disconnected or like lonely or kind of lost, I guess. And so having a community means that it takes like pressure off any of these individual smaller relationships. But also, community is kind of a bit of an ecosystem. It's like everybody has a kind of part in it. Everyone has sort of like a part to play and a role, and there's a certain sense of like equality in there, like like being part of something. And okay, yeah, maybe there might be hierarchies in some communities or whatever, but if for example with this like show, there'll be people who are more involved or people who are kind of managing things, and there'll be like, it's not like totally across the board the same, but it's more about like being part of something that's not just about you, and moving away from kind of that sort of like individualistic energy. And I don't know how many of you know about the whole kind of age of Aquarius, and that having come to light and started earlier this year. But essentially, from what I understand about it, and I've been reading and listening to like various things, but I won't go into it on too much. I won't go into too much detail about it. But one of the kind of key takeaways and understanding that I had from it, and if anyone has any more context or information, feel free to share it in the chat. Is that basically the age of Aquarius is us moving as a world from 3D to 5D consciousness. Now, what that means is 3D consciousness is all about like the material world, what's in front of us, what we can kind of like see and feel. And it is a little bit more kind of individualistic and materialistic. And 5D consciousness is about connection, sort of community, like what we can't like see or touch. It's more about what we feel and sort of what, sort of acting in service of like the greater good and kind of the world like waking up. And that's why, and I've said this before, but that's why when you look at things like Insight Timer, like look how massive this platform is. It's a Wednesday night, I'm like in my living room and there's 88 people here with me from around the world, and this is like my second live that I've ever done. And I think everybody on this platform largely is really interested in sort of personal development, growth, spirituality, and something bigger than themselves and community. And I think obviously the kind of like Laurie was saying about like having to be inside, like I'm so happy that you found Insight Timer and that you've got this platform, because I've mentioned it before, my own story. Insight Time has really helped me a lot when at times where, like after a breakup, I was living alone and it was suddenly very quiet in my house. So I'm glad that you're kind of here. And I think it's worth looking into, and maybe I can do a session on this at some point as well, is like creating more connection like remotely, because we have what we feel is the illusion of connection. So as an example, I was saying, last week that we think because we can like message people or like their photos or whatever, we feel like we've got insight and connection with people, but that isn't actual human interaction or connection. Having a video call or having a phone call is, but people don't typically talk on the phone anymore. It's one of those things that we've said as well. So yeah, Laurie, I think I imagine how like challenging that is. And I don't know if you will be able to kind of go outside anytime soon, but I hope that you do kind of find ways to still connect with people, even sort of having to be inside. And yeah, I think like some ideas, if anybody has any kind of suggestions or thoughts or ideas for Laurie or for anyone else who can't leave the house, please like drop them in the chat. I think as an example, sort of playing like games online over COVID was really helpful for me and for a couple of friends that also lived alone. And we did like a video call, and then we used to like play the games together as well. And that was a really nice way to kind of almost feel like you were doing something together. And Laurie, do you kind of spend much time like on the phone to people or any video calls or anything? Because if not, I think that's something that it could be worth thinking about. When I don't know how far or where it is in your comfort zone, or if it's something that sounds appealing to you. But I was having this conversation today as well around sort of like comfort zone, and essentially one of the things that as part of this show that I mentioned, Yumi Bum Bum Train, it's the craziest name, but it's like quite fun to say, is that we need a lot of volunteers. And so some of the volunteers that come in will be like sort of ringing the data, like the list of volunteers we have of people who've signed up, and inviting them to come into the office and stuff. And I basically last week realized that there's people who obviously are making these calls who aren't that comfortable on the phone and don't actually have any experience like doing calls like that. And I think that can be daunting, calling up someone that you don't know. And like that's some people's worst nightmare, and saying like, hey, this is like Priyanka from Yumi Bum Bum Train. We noticed you signed up and that you're interested in like this and this. Like, we wanted to see whether you wanted to come in and like help out. And I basically created like a little script for how they can like take people, like how they can approach that conversation, and to give people who aren't that confident a bit of a guide for that. Now, one of the kind of key takeaways we had is like having to do that and having something like that to kind of help them can actually be really transformational for people who aren't comfortable on the phone, where they might have just said no to like doing a call because they're like, I wouldn't know what to say, I'd be stuck. And then suddenly they've got this script and, they're like, yeah, actually, I'll give it a try. And we were just talking about how, there's someone who I work quite closely with, and she said to me that when she first did the show many years ago, she was like terrified of being on the phone, but she had to do it because she was like looking after a particular scene and she needed to cast for it. So she just had to ring up volunteers. And she said now she's like over that fear, but if she wasn't forced to do it, she would never have gotten over that. So I think it's worth looking at or thinking about where our comfort zone is slightly malleable, or not malleable but like elastic, where there's room for getting out of it, right? 96 meditators here. Wow. Thank you for joining, guys. And yeah, for those who don't know, this was supposed to be tomorrow. I scheduled it at the wrong time, so I didn't want to cancel last minute, and I wouldn't have been able to do tomorrow because you got to give 48 hours notice. So I'm not quite as on form as I would like to be. I've had a really long day of like meetings since 9 a.m. But it's a pleasure to be here, and yeah. Okay, so where are we with the messages? So yeah, you were saying, so Inge, you were saying, and tell me if I'm pronouncing your name right. I'm hoping you'd correct me if I'm not. While being on chemo, it made your immunity drop, so you can relate to a certain amount. As for you, it wasn't that long. Yeah, and I've got a neighbor who, like, she's a really, really sweet, very like creative, very intelligent 8-year-old girl, and she has a form of cancer, and she has to be inside a lot. So for her whole summer break, she was basically, they kept her at home as much as possible so that her immunity could, like, because she has no immune system, so that she could basically, not like spike a fever and not have to go to hospital. And she managed to go like most of the holiday without that, and then recently she's gone back in now. But she's also, there's the kind of difficult thing there because they try to get her outside and just even take her to the park or whatever, even if she's not having like close contact with other children like all the time. But she kind of has become a bit of a homebody in some ways as well, and then also like she sometimes just wants to stay at home. And then there's also the challenge of, she still goes to school when she's well enough, but then like the amount of bugs and stuff you'll catch at school. So it's like a really difficult kind of balance between, wanting to like get her out and about in the world, but also wanting to protect her immunity and like keep her safe. So you've said, I've had the highest frequency we humans can have is love, but apparently there are even higher frequencies that we don't know yet. Yeah, I'm assuming that relates to the stuff I was saying around like, us going from 3D to 5D consciousness as part of the age of Aquarius. And yeah, I do think that like I'm certainly experiencing and seeing and feeling a lot of things that I maybe wouldn't have been aware of or felt was like possible like a year ago. I mentioned like last week that my journey to becoming a teacher on Insight Timer is something I always wanted to do because I've always had massive respect, adoration, appreciation for all the teachers on here, and I think everyone does such an amazing job. But I also wasn't sure what my niche or my thing would be, and then I kind of realized in sort of recent week, or like maybe like 2 months ago now, that I wanted to teach around sort of building community and authentic, meaningful connection, because there's loads of data that says that I was speaking to someone today, and basically his partner is like he's kind of I feel like a psychologist or something for like a really big company, and they do loads of like studies every year. And he basically says that all of their kind of testing and metrics basically show that this generation now is the loneliest generation that there's ever been historically to date. People are more isolated and lonely than ever, and I'm sure that doesn't come as a surprise to like any of you. But what is the kind of paradox there is that we're the most connected we've ever been in terms of the digital world and online, but also like actually the loneliest. So I think while we appear or have the illusion of like constant connection, I think it's really goes to show like that quality is more important than quantity when it comes to how we connect and how we kind of interact with others. Because you can send like 50 WhatsApps and supposedly have spoken to 50 people in a day, but compared to like having one call with somebody for 10 minutes on the phone, I think there's and I used to say this about like dating and stuff. People say this all the time, that you can get more information in 1 minute of a phone call than you can in like exchanging 10 messages. So yeah, little tip for anybody who is kind of doing the whole online dating thing. In my experience, I would never meet up with anybody unless I'd had a quick call with them or like a video call, just because like time is precious, and kind of when you're meeting like strangers from the internet, you want to know that you have something that you're going to kind of have a nice time, or that there's like some energy fit. Obviously, if you've got an abundance of time and you don't really mind kind of who you meet up with and you're open to like meeting anyone, fine, fair enough, great. But for me, it was like I wanted to be very intentional about it. So I wanted to kind of date and meet up with people who I felt like there could be a genuine connection, synergy, and where I felt like I wasn't like wasting my time. So so a kind of a few tips that I kind of and I know we're going from like values and community to like dating, but it's also just whatever comes up naturally, right? So one of the things that I would do is like I would try and limit messaging as much as possible. You want to try and meet up with people in person like as soon as you can, or speak on the phone or over a video call. And for me, I never gave out my number to anybody. I just don't give out my number to people on dating sites, um, unless and until I've met them in person and want to stay in touch. So for me, I would just try and like, so I'd send them like a Google Meet link or whatever, and then just have a quick call and get a kind of an understanding for their, because you can, many of you, I'll give you an example, like many of you know me from Insight Timer, from being in the comments and the chat of other sessions. But I'm assuming that you like that isn't necessarily, that hasn't been like a indication or given you like a clear expectation of what I look and sound like on in actual real time. And it's that kind of thing. It's because what makes people like attractive, and I mean both in the kind of like romantic sense, but just generally, it's their like energy, their dynamism, like how people move, and when someone's animated compared to like a still photo of someone, still 2D, however you want to look at it. You have a lot more information this way, and you're kind of saving yourself like time and energy. And Laurie, you've said you've made some of your very best friends online. That's so lovely, because kindred people seem to find each other. Yeah, and on that note, I would also say that it's not just about people finding each other, but it's also about you being in the right headspace and the right energy to be receptive and open to that, right? So if you kind of are in a mindset where you believe that there are people that you can connect with, and you're open to like making connections and meeting new people, you'll find that and you'll get that. And I think that's true of like in real life as well. Whereas if you're closed off, you might sort of inadvertently sort of indulge in behaviors that prevent you from building those connections, or stop you from creating those communities. So the example I gave earlier was, if you're trying to meet new people or build a community, and you go to like a gym class or a yoga class or whatever, I suggested maybe going a bit earlier, so that you can, when you're waiting in the queue outside, you can maybe like speak to other people that are there, and maybe staying a bit longer afterwards. But somebody who maybe has like I guess like a smaller comfort zone, or doesn't want to connect or isn't open to connecting, might just be like, yeah, I'm going to be in and out and leave like as soon as it's done. So I think it's important. Mindset is a really important thing around, what you want. Like if you're clear on what you want to create, or what kind of communities you want to be part of, or what parts of your kind of life or values you want to grow, then it's easier to find what you're looking for and act in line with that. So another kind of way to look at it is, if you're clear on kind of, what kind of person you want to be. And I don't know how much you guys know about like self-concept, but it's something I've been hearing a lot about recently. And I'm fairly new to like having an understanding of self-concept. So maybe I'll learn more and cover it at another point in time. But self-concept is essentially where you decide like how you're going to see yourself and what your concept of yourself is. And if I'm wrong on this, or if there's any extra details I'm missing, like please feel free to share it in the chat and correct me. But it's basically where you decide like, I want to be, or I am like a fit and healthy person. And then you have a look at what behaviors would that person indulge in, like how would they live their life, what would they eat, what would they do, what would their routine be, and then you kind of practice those things. So for example, I would like, if I was kind of thinking along those lines, and this is actually true, like this is something I want to do, I want to go to the gym more often, I want to swim more often, and be kind of fitter and healthier, and focus on my nutrition a lot more. And, I'm working on it. But self-concept in that sense is like, you look at what the behaviors or patterns of like the thing that you want, what that looks like, and you kind of basically are creating a pathway. So I read something else in, I think it might have also been in the book Attached that I quoted from earlier, which was that when there's a way, there's a will. Actually, was it? I don't know if it was in Attached. I think it might have been in a different book. Yes, actually, it was in a book called Get Out of Your Own Way, and I had that recommended to me by a few people recently, actually. And I'm only in the first few pages of that. And in that book, one of the things they say basically is like, where it's not, the common phrase, when there's a will, there's a way, but they reversed it and they said, when there's a way, there's a will. So what they say is like, having all the willpower in the world isn't going to help you if you don't know the path or how to do or get to like where you're going or what you're trying to do. So the kind of messaging they had was, when there's a way, there's a will. Let me see if I can find that for you, because I think it'd be quite interesting to share. Let me just get that up. Has anybody else read either of those books, either Attached or Get Out of Your Own Way? Let me see. I don't know if there is a quote. Well, I mean, I don't know if there was more context on that, but I mean, I feel like you understand the concept. I can't seem to find it, but ultimately, yeah. So the basic principle is like, when you can think and figure out, think about and figure out what the path to what you want would be, or how that looks, or how you can get there, it makes it easier to do it. Because if you just have willpower alone, and I think actually personally, in my views, you kind of need a bit of both. But willpower alone, if you don't know how to get from A to B, you can have all the willpower in the world, but like, you don't know how to get there. I'm just catching up on messages. If anybody has any other like suggestions on, or not even suggestions, but community, and I guess another nice thing to reflect on is, are there any communities that you've been part of in the past that have had a positive impact on you, or that you've maybe like lost touch with or would like to do again? Or any communities you'd like to try and find. So I've got a couple of other kind of suggestions and ideas that I've sort of been like thinking about as well. So one of them, for example, is, and we've kind of mentioned this as well, if you have some interests, but you don't have like friends or family or anybody to do these things with, sometimes people will just kind of quash the interest. And not, is that a word, quash? I feel like I think it is, but I feel like I've never used it before. So yeah, I feel like some people would just like put that interest to one side and say, okay, well, I don't have anyone to do this with, so I'm not going to do it. And what I would encourage you to do, if you feel comfortable and confident enough, or if you're open to it, is explore like groups, or even try things alone, because that's where you will meet people and you will potentially like find communities. And if you can go back to those things more than once, even better, because basically you'll probably see the same people. Like, a lot of things people do go to by themselves. I go to the cinema a lot, and you'd be surprised at how many people actually do go to the cinema by themselves. And it's always one of those things that people, and it might seem sort of a little bit like paradoxical, like, oh, and counterintuitive, like, oh, if I want to meet people, surely I should not go to things by myself and I should go with other people. But the fact is, if you go to something with someone else that you're probably a lot more likely to stick to that person, talk to that person, and not be open to like other conversations and other people around you. So I would recommend, and I feel like I'm quite good at kind of not necessarily doing that all the time, but I do know that if I go to something with someone, even me as somebody who is comfortable and happy and open to talking to other people, I'll still feel a sense of like obligation, or even wanting to just talk to the friend or person that I also came with. So that's kind of, and potentially you miss out on connecting with other new people. So that's definitely like a big tip that I have, is sort of, tip number one, like do an activity or try something new that you've wanted to do for you and do it alone. And also, I mentioned before, for anyone that missed it, is like I was saying, that if you go to like a yoga class or, an art class or whatever, try and go early and also stay a bit later and see who you can kind of connect with and chat to both before and afterwards. Another kind of suggestion is, like, obviously we've talked about, fitness classes, yoga, I guess like Pilates, gym classes, etc. And I know obviously that's not going to be accessible to everybody, and for health reasons or injuries or whatever, some people might not be able to do that. The other things, like we had walking groups as well as something that was suggested. The other things that I'd kind of massively suggest is like volunteering. My voice cut out there a bit. Volunteering. I've literally spent the whole day in kind of meetings and talking today, so my voice is feeling a little bit like it's on its way out. So maybe it's a good thing that I did this live today, because who knows if I would still have a voice tomorrow. Yeah. So where was I? I was talking about kind of various things that you can do. I've lost my train of thought, but I'm gonna jump onto another one. For any like mothers, I know there's a lot of local kind of community groups for mothers with new babies, and I know that can also be quite like, I don't have children, but I have a lot of friends who've recently had children. Oh, thank you, Samantha. Can I just ask which Samantha is that? Because I feel like there's more than one Samantha who I'm friends with that I've invited to join today, and I think I know which one this is, but I'm not sure. And they're both like amazing people. So yeah, volunteering. That's a really big one, because and it's so broad, because I think we all have different things that we care about, right? And there are opportunities to volunteer in a range of different, like, sort of sectors, areas. And there's a lot of websites, at least in the UK, where you can find volunteering opportunities. But I think, but in my experience, they're kind of confusing, and they're not always very clear, or like they don't make it sound very compelling. It's not always like super easy to sign up. So what I'd advise is like going to local kind of community centres, your local library, also like charity shops, and just find out and ask people about things and what opportunities they might have, or whether they know other kind of networks or opportunities. And I recommend this for two reasons. First of all, you're kind of practicing the whole thing of connecting with people, meeting new people, and actually having that like human real-time interaction. And secondly, you might kind of find that organically you come across things that you wouldn't necessarily otherwise. So, like, as an example, ah, I've got two Samanthas. I know. Okay, so I know which one the first. So yes, I'll give you a bit of context on the two Samanthas, and actually like how I know them. I've known them both for many years, probably around the same amount of time. But back to the volunteering. So there's so basically the that's really like, that's been so like, that's genuinely so lovely that both of them are here. So I'm just gonna go on this sidebar, because why not? So Samantha, who like mentioned the volunteering thing, who reminded me and kept me back on track. She is one of my like closest friends, and one of my favorite, if not my favorite person in the world. I met her at university. We were in halls together, and I've been friends with her kind of all this time. And she is, out of everybody I've ever come across in the whole entire world, the person that has made me feel the most like seen and heard and loved and understood. And I think it's so important to kind of have those kinds of relationships, and also when you have them, and when you have people in your life who do make you feel that way, to like acknowledge and appreciate that, because you will get more of the same from like those people and from other people. And then the second Samantha, who is now in Barbados, I met her because I used to work in a gym many years ago when I'm 32 now. I was like 18 at the time, and she used to she was a masseuse, an incredible masseuse, and she used to do like other holistic treatments as well, in the kind of treatment room, in the beauty room in the gym I worked in. And so I kind of had some treatments and massages with her, and she was like truly incredible. And we stayed in touch quite a long time afterwards, and she moved to Barbados to kind of take care of her mum. And we've still stayed in touch. And actually, over the years, I've seen her a few times when she's been back in London. I actually saw her just kind of a month or two ago, and it was so wonderful. And she brought me these really beautiful, like, giant sunflowers. They had the biggest stems I've ever seen. They were literally like, I can't even show you, like, my arms don't, the span of my arms. And it was yeah, they were like the longest sunflowers I've ever had, but also the first sunflowers that anyone's ever given me, which was lovely. And we had a really nice catch up and a really nice dinner, and lunch, and I was telling her all about, like, everything I wanted to do on Insight Timer, and kind of, when this hadn't happened yet. So it was in the early stages. So I'm really happy that both of them, like, can be here. And they've both, along with, like, loads of other people in my life, have been so supportive and so lovely. So and they're actually two examples of people who I've known for a really long time, because actually what I found for me personally, most of my, like, closest connections now are generally a lot newer, and it's because I've kind of grown and evolved a lot, and you know done a lot of work on myself, and I've kind of changed, not necessarily I have changed, to be honest, but also I've gotten clearer on my values, my boundaries, what's important to me, what kind of energy I want to be around, and I've gotten better at kind of being intentional with how I spend my time and who I spend my time with and what I spend my time doing. And yeah, so it's just a testament to the fact that, like, that they're still in my life, because they're very, very amazing, like, high quality, lovely, wonderful people, both with, like, hearts of gold. And I'm sorry if I'm making you blush, but, like, no one can see you. So yeah, so back to, like, volunteering. So the reason that I mentioned about kind of, finding opportunities, like, organically, because I think for me, every volunteering opportunity I've ever done, I feel has kind of, like, found me in a way. So the first kind of volunteering I ever did when I was in sixth form in school, we got, like, a email round from a local hospital radio station. Inga, thank you for being here, and have a good rest. See you next time as well. Lots of love. And thank you, Monica. So I basically we got an email from from a local, like, hospital radio station, saying they were looking for volunteers. I knew at the time I thought I wanted to work in, like, media and the creative industries. I didn't know, like, sort of doing what. And sorry guys, my friend is really annoying me. It's like it's kind of whatever. So yeah, basically, thank you, Anthony. Yeah, so basically this kind of radio station, I still don't know which Samantha is. Wait, you've got a different colour S. Okay, yeah, that's Barbados Samantha. And thank you, Anthony. Do you know what? I think I am doing a great job, given how, like, tired I am and the kind of day I've had. But I think somehow it makes it a little bit more, like, real and authentic, and that's why I didn't want to cancel, because I kind of said that, I'd rather, like, because I think for me, follow through and kind of showing up is really, really important, and it's one of my values. Saying, like, doing the thing I said I would do. That's why last week, when I was under the weather, I still said, like, this is my first live. I've been so excited for it, and I plan to still, like, show up and be here. So back to the story, for anyone who's joined, I'm talking about how, like, volunteering opportunities and how I found them and how, rather, I feel they found me. So we got this email through about kind of a local hospital radio station. I thought, oh, this is interesting. It's something that I'd like to kind of be involved in, and I kind of I thought I wanted to work in, like, media. I didn't really know what that meant at the time, when I was, like, 17 or 16 or whatever, but I thought, let me, like, apply, find out, and sort of, get involved. So then I did that, and actually, funnily enough, I'm having lunch, like, in 2 weeks' time with another friend who I met through doing that, who I don't see very often. I see him literally every couple of years. But again, it's like, it's nice to kind of revisit some of these, like, older connections and stay in touch with people. And I think it's hard to do in this day and age, frankly, because there's so much, like, going on. There's so much distraction, and it can be hard to kind of consistently stay in touch with people. So I'd recommend, and I just had this idea now, because I have a bit of a background working in, like, new business, but I would actually recommend, if you can do a little, like, inventory of people who have made you feel good, or who you feel good and comfortable and happy around, or people who you have a good time with, even if you haven't seen or spoken to them in a while, and if there's no real reason why you've lost touch, right? It's just people get busy, things get in the way, and maybe have a think or reflection. I mentioned this last week about who you can, like, about who basically you can kind of reconnect with or reach out to, or who you might like to catch up with. I think that's like a really nice thing to do. And then hopefully you can report back next week and tell me that maybe you got in touch with someone or caught up with somebody that you haven't like seen in a while, or that like did matter to you, but you just kind of life got in the way, you know? Um, Especially, once people start having like families, or if people have like intense jobs or other things going on, or people move house or whatever, things like slip through the net. So about the volunteering, I went to kind of, I signed up. I ended up doing this hospital radio stuff, which basically involved like patient visiting. So you'd go around and speak to patients in the hospital, get their like song requests, and then we would like also do bingo with them over the radio. And then you'd come back to the studio and like produce the show based on all the song requests that they've given us. And I really loved that. It was a very fun and interesting thing to do on the radio side. But on the other side of things, and I actually, it's weird. I'd forgotten about the fact that I used to do radio, and I did it for many, many years at like two different hospital radio stations. And it kind of, I feel like I've almost come full circle back to the thing now where I'm like talking. And last week after the live, I was on such a high. I absolutely loved it. And I found it kind of so much fun. And it was wonderful to kind of be here with you guys, and 182 people. I'm so grateful. Um, on that note, if anyone does want to kind of know more about like what I'm doing, I haven't kind of posted on other platforms yet, but I will be doing that in due course. But if you go to my Insight Timer profile, there's a little Linktree link there, so you can find out more about me there. And also, if you're interested in kind of supporting my journey as a new Insight Timer teacher, obviously any like donations, big or small, like every little helps, are very much appreciated. As like an energy exchange, or to show gratitude, or like that you value my time and my energy, and that you've got some benefit from this situation. Or you can also donate via like Linktree, because I know Apple take a cut of the donations on here, if you do it via your phone. And then, oh, Monica, it's 89 and cloudy. So we do Celsius. I'm guessing that's Fahrenheit. So I don't know how hot or not that is. But I'm hoping that you're like content with the weather. And then, yeah, so what I was saying was that if you want to kind of like follow me, or I'd appreciate if you follow me as a teacher on Insight Timer. You can find out more about like other live sessions I'm doing and tracks that I'm going to be uploading. And if you're not in a position to kind of donate and support me that way, just please like share my profile, share my kind of live sessions, and you can subscribe to me on other platforms as well, which will kind of be coming. There'll be more coming on other things in due course. So the volunteering, so I did this hospital radio, and the one thing that I have to say, so it was fun. It was a really like cool experience, but it was also challenging. So visiting people in hospital when, I was like a 16, 17-year-old at the time, and I'd never really sort of like been around people that much at length, who were sort of, some of them were really unwell and had been in hospital for a long time. And one of the big things that struck me was how lonely and isolated some of them were. So there was people who'd been brought there from quite far away. So, they didn't have family nearby, they didn't have people that could like visit them regularly. And the kind of gratitude they had and the appreciation they had for having like visitors and having someone to come and talk to them was honestly fantastic, like really, really, really wonderful. And it kind of goes to show like things that you take for granted. And I think we had this, insight earlier, that, we take it for granted, like being able to go outside, being able to connect with people. Like Laurie, you were saying, obviously, for anyone that's missed this, like Laurie, unfortunately has to kind of stay inside because of health and immunity concerns. And it's just, I guess it's a reminder, like, to everybody that can go outside, like go outside, live your life, you know, so that like Laurie can live vicariously through you, but also so that you're kind of giving yourself the best opportunities to meet people, to put yourself out there, to for things to kind of organically like come to you, and connections and experiences, and exchanging like a little smile or a laugh or having nice conversations. You're going to have more of that, and you're going to increase your odds of that, Yeah, Laurie, you can be our little like advocate every session to encourage people to do what you can't. So, and Laurie, I hope that, soon you are able to connect with people in person. And until then, that you have a kind of thriving sort of online social life. But it does, yeah, it just kind of goes to show that we take these things for granted. And I think like volunteering from that respect can also really like humble you and ground you, because it makes you realize that, the things that we just assume, like walking around freely or being able to like even get out of bed, that's not always the case for everybody. So, we have to kind of like maximize and appreciate the opportunities that we have and make the most of them. And then from there, I really loved it. And that hospital radio station was quite small. So then I went to a different one that was nearby. And um, I did that for sort of more than like 10 years, I think. And my sister, who is 10 years younger than me, I don't know whether she's on this live or not, but she now does hospital radio at the same place. And it's crazy because she has the same like the friends that I had when I was there are still there doing it. This was in Northwest London, and I moved, and I don't know if anyone knows it, but it's Northwick Park Hospital, which is also where I was born. But for anyone who kind of knows that area, like they have a hospital radio there, but it's now become like a community radio station for the area, so it's called like Radio Harrow. Um, and I now live in East London, which is why I no longer go there or do that. And so when she was like a baby or little, like she used to occasionally come to radio with me, and so she knew some of the same people there. And now she does it, and she like a lot of those people are still there, and she's now friends with them. So it's kind of cool. It was like passing the baton. And she's very similar like to me energetically and how she speaks. So my sometimes if we call like our parents our house phone, they won't know which one of us it is, and I'll try and see if I can get her on a live with me at some point, because yeah, it's quite apparently we're quite entertaining when we're kind of together. But I basically like describe her as a kind of smaller, cuter, like funnier version of me. And when we go on like holidays together or when we travel together, I literally enjoy it so much, because it's like going on holiday with another version of myself that thinks the same way that I do, which is amazing, to be honest. So anyway, that second hospital radio station was a bit bigger, and so you kind of there were more wards, and you saw a lot more in terms of exposure to kind of people with different illnesses, and like understanding. And that's one where people had been in there for a long time and kind of hadn't necessarily had many visitors. And also you come across people, and it's kind of a little bit like sad, but you come across people who can't like communicate properly, or sometimes people don't speak English. So it can be, there are times that it feels a little bit like uncomfortable or challenging, and I think it was a really great experience, and like to learn empathy, communication, sort of understanding, and also like to be able to, if you can't communicate with somebody and because they don't speak the same language or because they're that unwell, being able to just kind of not like take that to heart and not feel too uncomfortable or like awkward about it, because ultimately like we're all doing our best, and like we have good intentions, we're trying to do a nice thing, and also yeah, you meet people, and you meet kind of people that you wouldn't otherwise meet, or wouldn't necessarily know in terms of other volunteers and stuff. And you have like, and even with some of the people in the hospital, like some of the patients, you have conversations that you wouldn't have otherwise, and you're kind of you're given more kind of perspective and reference points than you would otherwise. So that was kind of the first bits of volunteering I did, and then I did those for quite a long time. And then when I moved to East London, I wasn't doing the hospital radio anymore, and I kind of wanted to find something else, but I wasn't proactive about it, and I didn't have to be, because like I said, sometimes things find you. So keep your kind of eyes and ears like open to things. So I worked in London Bridge, and we used to get like I was kind of signed up to like a local newsletter for the local area. And one of the things that they sent a message around about was, they said, oh, there's this like charity that basically it's called South London Cares, I believe, and the overall charity is called the Cares Family. I don't know if it still exists now because they kind of had they like lost funding and they had to shut down parts of it. I'm not sure if it was all of it, but ultimately, what they were doing and what they were asking for is they were asking for people who had work, like people who worked in the area, to provide opportunities for older people who were kind of signed up to this charity. Oh, Monica, have a lovely time with your mum, and yeah, have a good rest of your evening and night. And I'll probably see you on another live, whether it's mine or someone else's soon. So, yeah, I'll see you then. I'll probably see you at one of Catherine's or like Blossom or someone else's live soon. So so yeah, basically the thing I was saying was so they basically had a request. They wanted, so this charity essentially is for older people in the community who are like mobile and lucid but feel lonely and isolated because London's changed a lot since um you know, they're people who've like lived in London for a long time, and it's changed a lot since they first sort of lived here, or as they've got older, like the city's suddenly changed and they don't like recognize things anymore. They don't know like, oh, what is like immersive theatre? There's all these new like cocktail bars and restaurants, and a lot of the stuff they used to recognize and were familiar with are no longer there. So the purpose of this charity was to kind of alleviate isolation and loneliness for older people, and also to kind of like make them feel a bit more connected to the current modern world and to have a bit of insight into like what's going on. And another example is a lot of the jobs that existed back when they were working, there were a lot less jobs, and jobs that we have now like didn't exist. Like they were like, what is a social media manager? And that's just like not even one of the more complicated job titles, right? There's a lot of things that they just wouldn't know, or wouldn't or don't understand. And so they basically want there's kind of three streams the charity had. One of them was to do social clubs for older people. So it'd be like younger volunteers like myself and older neighbors they'd called them, and they would do like quizzes. We went on a trip to like a gin distillery at one point. We would go for like walks. There'd be loads of different things, like go to the cinema, and that was kind of one of the streams that they had, social clubs, and that was great because you could basically go to like as many as you wanted. There was no minimum commitment, and you got to meet like loads of really interesting older people and make them feel part of something, and they absolutely loved it. Like it really made a difference to their lives. Otherwise they just largely would be at home and not really do a lot socially, or maybe not have like the confidence to. And then another stream of it was kind of they were like one-on-one friendships. So you'd be paired with like an older neighbor, and you would kind of visit them, or you'd meet up with them on a regular basis. I think it was like once a week or something like that. And that was for kind of people who kind of maybe couldn't leave the house. And I was paired with somebody who I used to have phone calls with her though, because it was over COVID. And then there was a third stream, which is how I first found out about the charities. They basically wanted to arrange workplace visits. So what they'd do is they'd get a group of like 10, 20 older people, and they'd arrange for them to go to like your workplace so that they could, hi Catherine, it's so nice to see you. Anybody who doesn't know Catherine and isn't like following her or hasn't been to any of her sessions, I can't recommend it enough. Like she'll change your life. And everybody that goes to, I mean, everyone that comes to all the sessions on here are kind of wonderful, but I've made a lot of really good friends, and sort of we've got a nice like club in Catherine's sessions. Monica's that's how I met Monica as well. So Catherine, I'm just talking about sort of like volunteering as a way of creating and building kind of communities. And I was talking about how I did like hospital radio previously, and then now I'm on the subject of kind of volunteering for charities that kind of help older people in the community. By the way, if anyone can hear squeaks, those are the guinea pigs. I don't know if you can hear it. So anyway, the email came through, and I'm talking about as well how opportunities will find you if you're open to them, and if you just like say yes to things and look out for them. So I got this email through saying they wanted to arrange like a workplace visit for older neighbours in the community. And so I responded to it. I spoke to my bosses, and then I responded to it and I arranged it. And these older people came in, and we did like a little, like they kind of sat with various people and they kind of learnt about their jobs, and then we did like a little quiz at the end, so that to see if they understood like what we do. But they were so amazed because to them they were like, this kind of job like never existed when we were working, or in our day and age. and they felt really like nice, like knowing what the company in that building do. And then I joined and signed up as a volunteer for like the social clubs and the other stuff, and it was really wonderful. And up until basically end of last year, I was volunteering with this charity for like probably like maybe 9 years or something now. And then they lost funding, and they kind of like after COVID, and they were really struggling. So unfortunately, they had to shut down. And I was looking for kind of a new volunteering opportunity, and I feel like because I've done hospital volunteering before, hospital radio, and I've done this kind of stuff with older people, and I'm really naturally quite good with children. I feel really comfortable with children. And so I kind of there's a children's hospice that's sort of near, it's kind of a hospice slash like a centre where they can just go for like the day and celebrate festivals there in like a safe, controlled environment. And basically the I emailed them about volunteering there, and I wasn't sure if it was going to be too much for me because I'm also quite an emotional person. Like I cry really easily, and so I thought maybe I don't have the fortitude for it. But let me like email them and see and try. And I never heard back. But then a little while after that, I ended up making a connection with a neighbour who I mentioned earlier on the call. Her daughter is 8 years old and has a type of cancer, and I ended up spending time with them. And like the little girl comes and sees my guinea pigs, and she absolutely loves them. Or we play games on the roof terrace sometimes because it's a bit safer for her to be like outside for her immunity and stuff, rather than in an enclosed space. And it also gets her out the house when she kind of needs that little push. So I started spending time with her and her mum, and it's made quite a big difference then. But also to me, it's been really like uplifting and wonderful. And that little girl goes to this center or hospice to basically celebrate like festivals or occasions, or sometimes she'll just go there for like events and stuff. And I think it's funny how everything is like connected basically. And so yeah, just things come up without you necessarily like needing to find them or push them. And the volunteering I'm doing now with this show, Catherine, you'll find the name of this really funny. The show's called You Me Bum Bum Train. It's a kind of immersive theatre show in London, and it's got like a cult following. So anyone that is in London that wants to know more, like look it up or drop me a line. But we need like as many volunteers as possible, and it's a really, really wonderful group of people, and it's something that's quite like iconic. The last one happened like 8 or 10 years ago, so it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's like truly, truly incredible. Um, so and it's like a great way to meet new people and form connections. And we've been talking a lot there about community and sort of making it feel like inclusive and of like a family and a place. And the one thing for me that really struck me about what I'm doing now with them is that this is my first time being involved in the show, but the way that people talk about it and the way that people keep coming back, like there's people that have like volunteered and been involved with the show for the last like 15 plus years, and but yet they come back every time. And then like most people that work on it are not paid, like it's largely run by volunteers, but it's like such a kind of it's that kind of magic and special that people like still want to be involved, people want to come back every time. So I'm quite grateful to be involved, and my experience so far has been like amazing. We're still kind of in the early stages, like we've not done like sort of pre-production or production properly yet. But I think it like when the actual show is going to be live, which I think is end of November until like end January, I think it's going to be a lot more hands-on and a lot more intense. But I think a lot of fun as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. And so anyone that's interested or wants like a volunteering opportunity in London, like drop me a message. But that opportunity also, I'd signed up for the mailing list for that because I love immersive theatre. I love immersive experiences. And if anyone doesn't know what they are, it's things like kind of escape rooms. There's a little variation of it. Immersive theatre, it's kind of where you're in an environment or in an experience where you might go from like a room to room, or you might like I've been to various shows where one of them or some of them you kind of there's like you'll see like a scene, and then the characters will all like shoot off, and you can like follow them and go to different spaces. So you can choose who you want to follow and which part of the story you want to kind of see or experience. And there's other things where like secret cinema, I don't know if any of you have heard of that, where you dress up in like a costume, that is related to, like, they did one like for Bridgerton, for example. So you dress up in like whatever the Bridgerton outfits, and then you basically will like be part of a story, or have to do like a little, you might have to kind of do a little like task or something that's kind of in line with the narrative, and you're kind of in the world of the film. They literally build the world of the film, so it's kind of really exciting, and it's like I really enjoy it, and it's a kind of quite a fun thing to do. And where was I going with this? Oh, so I really enjoy immersive theatre. I heard great things about this show, and people told me, people I know have like been involved in the past or gone to the show in the past, so I signed up on their mailing list or whatever to get involved, and like, you know, to basically be updated whenever new tickets become available or whenever there's any updates. And that was like many years ago. And then I got an email again. This was after the redundancy stuff was announced, so suddenly I'm finding out I'm going to have some free time, and I'm going to you know, be available for like during the day and stuff, even though like for volunteering they're open, like the office is open from morning till like late, so a lot of people just pop in and do little bits after work here and there, and there's no like minimum commitment, so it's quite flexible. But because I've got more time, I can have quite a more kind of involved role. So this came up, they just sent an email saying like, exciting news, our next show is going to be happening soon, um you know, come along to one of our like big meets to find out more. And then so I did that, and then the kind of timelines all worked out, and it's like, wow, how amazing that suddenly I'm available, I've gone through redundancy, I've got free time, and then this opportunity that's really exciting, and something that I kind of, the kind of thing I'd love, where I get to like be around like nice people, and you know, be involved on the other side of like immersive theatre, which is something I love, has come up just organically. So I think, and I know I'm kind of at time now, but basically, I guess like the main sort of takeaway, we've obviously covered, just to kind of wrap up, we've covered like different ideas about you know, how to find like activities and things that you can do in your local community, and ways of building connections and community around that. So just as a reminder for anyone who didn't hear this, is like, if you go to a class, whether it's yoga, art class, a gym class, try and go earlier and try and chat to people while you're waiting to go in. Also, similarly, don't leave straight away afterwards. Try and speak to people and connect with people. And then on the kind of like volunteering front, or even opportunities, like say yes to things, be open to things, try new things. And another thing I mentioned as well is like, if there's something that you want to do it, and maybe you don't have like friends to go with, or maybe you do have friends to go with, but maybe give it a shot and go on. Or let me rephrase that, if you kind of, if you think like you wouldn't go unless you had somebody to go with, maybe just do it anyway, because you will probably be more likely to talk to new people and meet new people and kind of build connections. So yeah, those are kind of the main like oversights. And be open, like look for, you know, be clear on what you want to find or what kind of things you want to do, and be open to finding them. So even if right now you don't know what that is, just kind of ask yourself over the next few days, like, what kind of, or maybe, you know, ask yourself this question before you go to sleep and leave it to your subconscious to kind of come up with answers. And you can report back next week on what came up to you. Yeah, Mark, that's a great idea. The yoga group, go and eat after class. Yeah, and I've done that with people before, where I've, you know, gone to a class and met people, and they've said, "Oh, do you want to grab a bite or whatever?" So, um, yeah, I guess the kind of one of the other things. So do put yourself out of your comfort zone if you feel okay to do that, and it's not, you know, going to induce like severe anxiety. But if it's just a thing of like, oh, you just kind of want to be, you know, I think there's a difference between like wanting to stay in your comfort zone because it's comfortable, and wanting to stay in your comfort zone because you can't physically or mentally like get out of your comfort zone. And if you are in a position where you can probably push yourself a little bit, or do something that, you know, you wanted to do, but maybe like you haven't pushed yourself, you haven't given yourself a nudge, and you just need that little bit of like, okay, yeah, let me try this. You can take this as a message of, you know, try the things that you want to try, and, you know, you don't have to do it again if you don't like it. But obviously, one of the other tips was, if you go to an activity or a class, and you go back, you're more likely to then meet people and make more connections. So I think I'm gonna kind of wrap up there. Does anyone have any like closing remarks or any closing questions? And just yeah, thank you guys for being here. I know there's a lot of faces who were here last week as well, and I so appreciate your support. And we had some technical issues with my microphone not working, but the next session, let's hope for third time lucky, that we're going to have a working microphone and brilliant audio. And I'm going to schedule it for when I mean to schedule it, because for those of you who missed it, I actually intended to do this tomorrow when I didn't have a super hectic, crazy, frantic day. But then I realised I'd done it for tonight, so I just thought I'm going to follow through and do it. Otherwise, I didn't want to cancel last minute. So yeah, nobody has any questions or closing remarks. Just a reminder, I would absolutely love any support that you guys are able to give me, whether that's the hearts, making a donation, if you're able to. I think the smallest donation amount is like $1.99. That's kind of my main source of income at the moment. And also, if you're not in a position to donate, you can also follow me on Insight Timer. You can find my link tree, follow my other kind of channels. And yeah, there'll be kind of more content both on here and on other platforms in due course. But yeah, follow me and you'll have more info on my next live. I think at the moment it's probably most likely to be next Tuesday. So yeah, that would it'd be great to see you all there. And then I'll be going away next week, so I wouldn't do a session the week after that. So let's hope next time, third time lucky, that's the best session yet, and everything kind of works in terms of audio, video, and also me being in the right energy and headspace. Although I really enjoyed this, but you guys haven't seen me at my prime yet. Like last week I was unwell, and this week I've had a really, really hectic day. I've literally been on the go and talking since like 9 a.m. and it's now 10:36 p.m. So I'm going to say goodnight. I'm going to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to all of you for being here, for listening to me. If anybody has any like little feedback that they want to give to me personally of what I can do to make these sessions better or more engaging, please feel free to drop me a message, or anything you'd like to see or hear about. Or any kind of topics I've covered that you maybe want me to do a full separate session on, please feel free to message me directly. You can message me on kind of this profile, or I've got my sort of personal like Insight Timer profile as well. So yeah, thank you guys so much for your time and energy and for being here with me. And I hope may you all, and the homework for this week, if anybody wants it, is have a think about what kind of classes or communities you might like to join, and where and how you can kind of get involved with them, and what you can do to kind of move that forward for yourself. And then also have a think about any people in your life who make you feel good, or who you've spent time with in the past and enjoyed, who you have maybe lost touch with or maybe haven't spoken to in a while, who you'd like to see and reconnect with. So, you know, ideally people where it's not you maybe haven't like lost touch with them for any big or major reason, just like life gets in the way. So yeah, I'd leave you on those two notes. And thank you to all of you who, friends, like other Insight Timer people, teachers who are brilliant. And please support all of our teachers as well on here. And good night from me. Bye guys. And see you. I'm gonna go jump on to Rob's live now. If you want like beautiful vibey music and a really fun time, highly, highly recommend. So let's all go. Rob Gregerson. Let's all jump on his live. Bye guys. Take care.